Hi, and welcome to In Brandon. Today we're with Pat Boslaw, and we're going to talk about the Milestones Preschool Wellness Fair. Welcome, Pat.
Thank you so much, and thank you for saying Milestones Preschool, because sometimes when we say the Wellness Fair, it gets confused with some other events in the city.
Right. So tell us, what is the Preschool Wellness Fair?
Well, the Preschool Wellness Fair is a phenomenal event in Brandon in April. It'll be on April 25th this year, and it's an opportunity for moms, grandmas, aunties, uncles, whoever is available to bring the children in their family that are age 3 or 4 to come to the Keystone, the main concourse, and at that time there are stations set up throughout the concourse where the children can be screened. And you think, screened? What does that mean? Well, we have professionals that we call together on that particular day, and the children are screened in hearing, which is really important, and I can tell you a story about that after, vision, speech, which is just hopefully developed by age 3. If it isn't developed, well, the parents will get feedback on what needs to take place. Overall development, and also dental. And a lot of parents think, oh, they've got baby teeth, so it's not going to matter if their teeth are a bit rotted or whatever. But it really does matter, because people don't realize, unless they hear somebody that has no teeth, that our teeth help us to form the sounds. And when the children arrive at school, they need their teeth to be able to develop the sounds when they're learning the alphabet, which leads them to learning to read. And then their speaking becomes their literature, their written word as well. So those are the 5 areas, and this year we're also adding one about nutrition, because there are some things that happen in terms of what children eat that really can, for example, deteriorate their teeth. And so those kinds of pieces of information are important for the people to have.
So this is, I guess, a chance now to get a little bit of anecdotal information that you've seen around out there. But why is it important for this event to take place, and for parents or family members to bring a 3 or 4 preschooler in to be screened?
Well, many of the people in this community know that I taught grade 1 for years and years and years, so I'll give a little anecdotal story about one year I had a class of 32 dear, dear little people. And as a teacher, you know when you're making a connection. You know when the child is engaged in what's going on. And I had several that weren't engaged, and I was panicking, thinking, what am I doing wrong? What am I doing wrong? Because you are so conscientious that you want success for all these children. And then I was fortunate to have a colleague who was studying at university at the time, doing her master's program, and she actually had a little, wasn't a test, but it was a little program where you could give scenarios to the children, and they had to be able to hear to answer the question properly. They didn't have to think their own possible answer. The choices were given to them, but they had to be able to hear clearly to understand what the right answer would be. And out of the 32, I'll never forget, it was really upsetting to me. There were 17 that didn't pass that little auditory discrimination instrument. So I phoned down to the audiologist department at the town center, and the audiologist of the day said, your job, phone the parents and ask them if they could have the children come down one by one and make an appointment, and we'll do a proper test down here. 17 children trotted down, and 17 children had hearing deficiency. They had infected eardrums or something along that line, and this was many years ago, but it always stuck in my mind that if we hadn't had that intervention, those children would have been behind the 8 ball probably for the rest of their life in school because their hearing deficiency hadn't been caught. And the one little guy that stands out in my mind, because Mom was really upset when I phoned and she went, "Oh no," and this is, she made it sound like the end of the world. And when he came back with his, the little surgery being done, he immediately started to read. In 1 week, he was just totally tuned in and he totally learned to read. And so I had to phone Mom and she said, "Oh no, now what?" I was able to say, "Well, I've got great news. He's a different child. He has just really been able to connect with everything that's going on in the class," and it was such a celebration. Now, he's not the only one. There are tons of stories like that. I talked about the teeth and how important it is for the children to have their dental care, because if they lose teeth and they're early in their development of their mouth, then it's important for that space to be there for the second permanent teeth to come up, and as the jaw grows and develops, so needs to be the spaces for their teeth. The speech is extremely important because a lot of the children have speech impediments that can be rectified with some training, and we have supports in Brandon School Division that contact the parents, beyond the school division, but for example, and tell them how they might get some support for rectifying speech impediments.
Right, and like we were talking earlier too, it's that you want to catch them before they get to school.
Well, yes, so that's why we chose ages 3 and 4, because believe it or not, most of those things are not an instant fix. You're not going to instantly fix a child who has a speech impediment. It takes months, sometimes years, before they're able to develop the ability to reproduce a sound. And that happened with my own child. I had one who couldn't say his name because it started with a letter or sound that he couldn't make as an initial consonant. And so having gone through that, it just solidifies how important it is for parents to have this opportunity to come, because not all of us are medical people. Certainly I'm not, but when you take a child and they're examined medically, some of those things show up, but as you know and I know, you have to communicate with your doctor to ask the right questions to get the answers and to have the doctor explore the child or yourself more thoroughly. So why do we do that? Because we want successful children in the school division, and we want them to be ready to learn when they enter kindergarten.
Yeah, so if it's identified early before they get to school, that means they don't start falling behind.
That's exactly
while
right.
They're in school and learning of the problem, when they already get a little behind, or educationally or developmentally in school and stuff like that, right?
I need to point out that this is not a cost item. Like, you don't have to pay to go to the fair. You just show up, but you show up in lots of time because there are a lot of people. Last year we had 325 children that were screened, which was great. But I wonder what happened to the other 325 people that potentially were ready for kindergarten, because we have had 700 kindergartens enter Brandon School Division last fall, and I wondered how many of those 700 had been screened. So it always, what happens to the rest of them, and hopefully they're caught at school, but not always, and so they're kind of behind the 8 ball if they don't come ready and equipped with the skills to start learning.
If there is some type of issue.
Right.
Yeah. So who's all involved with the wellness fair?
Well, actually, we're a committee of about 10 people, and the 10 people represent a wide spectrum of supports from the City of Brandon. So I'm going to read the list. Child and Family Services is one, and they offer supports in a variety of ways. Well, we all come together and brainstorm and plan this event for April 22nd. Prairie Mountain Health, both the audiology department and the access center, the Department of Families with Children with Learning Disability or Disability Services, the Brandon School Division, Public Health, the Little Teaching Lodge, which is where a lot of the Indigenous children are learning in a preschool setting, the Society for Manitobans with Disabilities, and In a Good Way, which is the Friendship Center. So we have wonderful supports in the city that all come together and offer their expertise, and together we put together the whole day. In terms of audiologists, they come from the Prairie Mountain Health. In terms of dentists, we have dentists who actually bring a dental chair with their dental assistants, and they examine the children's teeth and then let the parent know exactly what needs to be done. For speech, we have a great partnership with the University in Minot, and so the students there that are learning to be speech clinicians come and do a whole day practicum with us and the 300 plus children that go through. So that we have some local speech clinicians as well, but with such a number of children, and it isn't like a 1 minute kind of thing, it means that we need lots of help. So hearing, I've talked about; speech, I've talked about; dental, I've talked about. The overall development is something that the children come from home with how they have developed. If they've had lots of experience playing, handling materials, measuring, pouring water, those kinds of things, standing on 1 foot, hopping on 1 foot, hopping on 2 feet, jumping up and down, all of those physical and tactile development, those are what are tested at that. And some of the knowledge things, are they able to answer simple questions? So,
if somebody had brought a 3-year-old last year to be tested, is there a need or for them to bring the child again at 4?
We have a lot of people that do bring them twice, like for both 3 and 4, and that's a great question, because we've had lots of people phone and say, "Oh, my child's birthday isn't till May, but I'm just really anxious." So, and they're 2. So we'll say, okay, like we can probably fit in somebody that's just on the cusp of turning 3. 3-year-olds are at a different space in their overall development than a 2-year-old. So if they were early 2, they're just learning some of those things that physical and verbal development that would be below where we're testing. Likewise, we've had some people who say, "Oh, my child has just turned 5, but they're starting kindergarten in the fall, and I'd just like some reassurance that they're ready to start." And we say, "Sure, that's fine."
Right. Okay, so let's just recap again. When is the
fair? Is on April 25th. It is at the Keystone Center. The children, it depends on the day and how many children arrive at the same time. I have to stress that you can't just send your child. You have to have a guardian come with them that has permission if you are not the parent. So they've got a signed permission slip. And there will be a form that you carry with you as the child goes to each station. And that form becomes a permanent record for that child, so that we know where we're starting from, and that's used then to contact the resources that the child needs and follow up with the parents to be sure that they're following up. And it usually takes maybe even 2 hours or maybe even more. We also have a reading station set up this coming year where the children will be able to get a free book courtesy of the Rotary Club of Brandon Sunset. And we've done that before, and that's very exciting for the children to get to pick a book. They also have a nutrition stop where they get a piece of an apple or a drink or milk or something like that. So it's very inclusive. In addition, there's one whole room that's set up with resources for parents on everything from nits in the head to possibility of different resources that you can have in the community or different things that you can do.
Right. So, and when we take the Keystone Center, it's on the main concourse?
It's on the concourse because there are lots of rooms off the concourse that are used as the room where they are screened. For example, like you have to have a really quiet room when you're doing the audiologist testing. We also have a resource room that is sort of apart where it's out of the main thoroughfare for when they're doing speech, because little people have little voices and the audiologists or the speech clinicians want to hear what they're saying and how their enunciation and pronunciation is coming out of their little mouths. So that's basically it. It's free. We are thrilled to have the people come. It's all run by volunteers, so there's, that's why there's no cost in terms of for the parents. Yes, we do have some costs, but they are covered by donations and support that we get from the community. So this is another example. There's an old saying that says it takes a community to raise a child, and our community is doing lots to raise our children.
So one thing I don't think that we've touched on yet, though, is that when it's advertised from hour to hour, but there is an actual cutoff time for people to actually start the screening, right?
That's correct. They have to be there before 5 o'clock. It runs right through till 6 o'clock, but you can't come at 6 o'clock and have all those stations covered.
Right, right.
Because the people are all volunteers, and most of them have families at home that they need to go home and make a meal for it, or get to their next commitment, whatever it may be.
Right. So that's April 24th?
25th.
25th, sorry. April 25th at the Keystone Center.
Tuesday.
On the main concourse of the Keystone Center, right outside the big rink. And so hopefully you'll have lots of children come again. Don't forget, get your kids screened. It's an important thing to do before they start to school.
It is absolutely a gift to help your child have success in school.
Yeah, and I wish something like that was available. Luckily, my children didn't have any learning or health or anything like that, development issues. So, but I wish something like that would have been available for
It's interesting that you mention that, because many people say, oh, I wish that I had known. Why don't you have it for 2 days or 3 days? And we go, whoa, because we're all volunteers. We're lucky to get 1 day set aside all day, starting first thing in the morning and going right through till, last intake is at 5 o'clock. It's and because it is free and it's all volunteers, we just can't go on in perpetuity. You can always go to the public health if you have an extra concern, because that's one of the facilities in Brandon. If you have something that you're concerned about, well, you can go that route too. But we like to service as many people as we can, as many children on that particular. And again, we put up a ton of posters around, so if you missed the date today, look for that. We also have, if you've already got a child in school, there'll be a memo that goes home in your child's school newsletter, and you can always phone to the school division or to Child and Family Services, and they'll be able to give you times if you've missed the actual detail.
Excellent. Well, again, April 25th, Keystone Center, the Milestones Preschool Wellness Clinic, or Fair, sorry.
That's correct.
Thank you very much, Pat.
And thank you for Westman Communications Group TV being able to sponsor this particular information session. We really appreciate that.
Great.
Okay.